Hola! Welcome to Case Stories by Dr. Josie, that's me, where you get to hear and learn stories from the hospital. This time round, I want to start by doing a series of history of surgeries. So I'll be talking about where different surgeries emanated from and how they've grown over the period of years. Today we'll talk about the history of cesarean section and the history of heart surgery. By the way, I post such cases and stories from hospital. If that's your thing, kindly consider subscribing and share. History of surgery. We're starting with cesarean section. So cesarean section is traced back to the BC century, and when it was being done then, it wasn't as really a method of delivery. It was more of saving a healthy baby from a dying mom or a dead mom. So mostly it wasn't considered as something routine. In the 18th century, they started doing cesarean sections on live women who necessarily were not condemned to death. But now, they wouldn't suture things back. They would cut open, remove the baby, but wouldn't suture things back. Instead, they would put a compact dressing around the abdomen and hope that healing will take place. After a while, they realized that this was not working because most women used to die now from blood loss. What is hemorrhage? Because you've left uncut blood vessels open, you've left tissues open, so a lot of bleeding is going to happen. They realized that this is not working. Now, the breakthrough and the turning point of cesarean section development was in 1882 when a German doctor called Max started doing now the suturing. That is when they realized, oh, the suturing is saving a lot of blood loss. And from there on, cesarean section was started. Suturing in cesarean section was started, but now it wasn't as advanced. They would do like one big suture. So it dealt with the blood loss for a while, but now a new problem developed. Many moms used now to die of infections. Remember, this is the 18th century. Antibiotics were not discovered. Antibiotics were discovered in the 19th century. So now they've dealt with the blood loss, and there's another problem. There's infection of the uterus, which now would spread to the whole body, leading to sepsis and death. So before now antibiotics were discovered, they wondered how can we deal with this infection, and they thought, why not take out the uterus since it is the source of infection? Get this. So now they will do a cesarean section, and when suturing back, they will take out the uterus. This obviously had its limits because it meant when you take out the uterus, you cannot conceive again. And also it wasn't a guarantee that you wouldn't get infections, because infection is not only in the uterus, it could be anywhere along where the cut was made. In the 19th century is when things got better, when antibiotics were discovered. So now they were able to deal with the blood loss. Remember, the thing that was giving them a headache was the infection. Now antibiotic has been introduced, and there is no need of removing the uterus as a way of countering the infections. So the discovery of antibiotics made it possible for CSS to be done several times. Remember, CS used to be done once because after the procedure, you come out with the uterus. Now they discovered another problem. Now here's the thing with innovations. You must deal with one problem to discover another one. So here's what they discovered, that they've been able to do multiple CSs now because you have antibiotics, but they will reach a point where the uterus has been done so much CS, it becomes friable and it ruptures. And that is where the policy came in from CSs to be done a maximum of 3 times. Because after 3 times, the uterus is usually so friable. So if you get another pregnancy, it's usually like paper thin. It will rupture. But we were able to overcome that by stating the number of CSs that one person can undergo. And We come to the future. Currently, CSs are very successful. They are very dependable, and to a point where you can choose it to be done on you electively. It doesn't have to be an emergency. That means how much the CS procedure has grown. And that is what I have about cesarean section history today. Next, you're going to do history of heart surgery. So in the past, the heart was considered an organ that cannot be saved, an organ that cannot be accessed, and any diseases or conditions of the heart were doomed to be, the patient was doomed to be dead. But now in 1896, a doctor faced a patient with a stab wound on the heart, and the stab wound was so open that he could visualize the ventricle of the heart. So he attempted to suture the heart, and it was successful. This is the first documented beginning of the heart being intervened, and that was in 1896. From there on, the medics started seeing it possible to repair conditions of the heart, and in 1926, the first heart surgery was done inside now, where it comprised of the valves. Remember, the first one I told you was just outside because of the stab wound, were able to suture. Now we are inside. In 1926, they were able to repair a heart valve surgery. And actually, the case is usually so funny because it was a cardiologist was referred to a patient who had a heart valve problem. Heart valves were considered also non-curable, but he attempted and it was successful. And later on, none of the doctors recommended any patient to him because they saw, oh, okay, maybe it is doable. Now, here's the thing. Don't ever be afraid of being the first to do something. Maybe you'll be the one who's be successful. After being able to enter into the heart and repair the valves, they started considering, what about children with heart problems? Remember, they've only dealt with heart problems in adults. And one common heart problem is called a PDA, which we know as a hole in the heart. I know you've had someone who said they have a hole in the heart. So this is what usually happens. When we are in utero, when we are in the womb, everyone has a hole in the heart because we are not breathing, we are not using lungs. When you're born, when you take your first breath, the hole automatically closes such that oxygenated and deoxygenated blood cannot mix. But in some babies, the hole is not able to close, and this brings up complications later in life because oxygenated and deoxygenated blood mix. So now they consider, what if we are able to correct this in children? And in 1930s to 1940s, they were able to repair holes in the heart, that is in the PDA, and this provided a big development in the history of heart surgeries. In 1960, remember I've talked about the valve being sick and being repaired. In 1960s, now they discovered that some valves that were beyond repair, you could replace them with artificial valves. Now, I know you've heard about people being implanted or changed for valves. In the past, it wasn't a successful procedure. But now in the 1960s, that is when the procedure was started and it was successful. And this also marked a hallmark in the growth of the heart surgeries, since we could be able to remove a damaged heart valve, improving the life of the patient. In 1967, the first heart replacement was done and it was successful. Today we know we can get heart transplants. It wasn't until 1967 when the first one was done. And now surgeries of the heart, they differ from emergency to urgent to elective and to routine cases. Heart surgery really evolved from a point of no hope to a point of curiosity to a point of, oh, it can be done, to a point of, oh, what more can we do? And to a point of, let's change the whole heart. And that is how heart surgery has evolved. These days, we are trying to reduce open surgery to the heart, because the development is in that minimally invasive techniques can be able to restore the normal heart function or close to normal heart function. If you have anything else that you know about heart surgeries, you can drop down comments or any questions. Till next time, ciao.